And we're live. Good evening, Whiskey Brothers, Whiskey Sisters, and welcome to episode 17 of the Canadian Whisky Journey's Whiskey Review. I'm Dolph. I'll be your host tonight, and I'm joined by Blair Phillips, co-author to this book right here, The Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, the portable expert to over 200 distilleries and the spirits they make. And it's Father's Day weekend, so this would be the book you need to get. I think so.
That's right.
Blair,
some of this.
Some of that, yes. We should say some of that. They should, but the book is terribly important. Blair and I are continuing our Canadian whiskey journey with a review of this stunning bottle. We just said it's got a lot of heft to it too. For 500 ml, this is a heavy bottle. It's the Bridgeland Distilleries Tabor Corn Bourbon, and I found a whole whack of information on this particular bottle in this article right here. So let me get to this article, and you're going to go to CanadianDistilleries.com. You'll look at that article. And Blair, I've got to say you really outdid yourself on this article because you talk about Olivia de Havilland, an actress from Gone with the Wind, her link to Tabor. You talk about the historical establishment of the town of Tabor, how covetous Tabor corn is around North America, and finally about our Canadian history with bourbon. And since yesterday was National Bourbon Day for our friends down south, I think we should stick to that storyline. So could you tell us just a wee bit about Canada's link to bourbon, and it's sizable, and what put a halt to that, please, kind sir?
Well, Canadian distilleries have like before in the 50s, even before then, were always making like bourbon style whiskey where you're talking about like high corn mash bills and there was no one ever batted an eye about it. It's just the way it was. That's how you can make whiskey that way. No one cared. And a lot of the American distilleries, they wouldn't care either. It was just, we're making whiskey. And sometimes, for instance, Hiram Walker, maybe Crown Royal, every now and again, they would when stocks were running low in the States, they'd say, hey, we have that style of whiskey. They'd send it down, bottle it. Hiram Walker, like Aurora, Illinois, for instance, they had a distillery in Illinois, and they were making bourbon whiskey in Canada and sending it down there. But what happened was in 1963, I'm going to get into a little bit of a conspiracy theory here, that Kennedy was shot. Next thing you know, Lyndon B. Johnson is in office, and he's ramping up his Cold War politics. And that year, on May 4th, 1964, I think it was, all of a sudden politicians got a little bit hungry about designations.
Protectionist.
They got obsessed with geographical designations. And what happened was Canada, the trade negotiators decided, okay, go ahead, take bourbon and call it a U.S. product, and we won't call it that anymore. So just like that, overnight, it became intellectual property of the United States, and we were no longer allowed to call it bourbon. And even today, it's really strange because whenever a whiskey company makes, like you look at Crown Royal Bourbon Mash, anything that has anything to do with bourbon, people get their backs up really high. But it's really just, a political thing from the 60s that we just let slip away, unfortunately.
Yeah, whoever was in charge of that and let it slip is well, maybe they were paid off. Well, let's just stick with the conspiracy theory, and they're paid off by Lyndon B. Johnson. There we go.
Yeah,
it was all fault. Part of the plot.
It was all part of the plot, and Kennedy was going to let it go, and he got shot for it. But it's kind of interesting, like you think that the Canadian negotiators would have at least, said, how about poutine? That's Canadian. If you Americans try to make cheese fries, you can't call it poutine.
Never. That's it. That would have been great. And we could have negotiated from that point on and probably gotten it back. Now, this isn't whiskey. I said it was whiskey before. It's not whiskey. It's a bourbon style. It's not 3 years yet. And you can tell young oak, and you get a lot of oak on it. But let's talk about the tasting notes. Little quick second. I want to click on a few pictures here. So this bottle, 500 mils. It comes from that beautiful distillery right there. I was there 2 weekends ago. It's 45%. It's roughly $50. The mash bill is 60% corn and it's grown by the Malner family in Tabor. It's got 32% barley, 8% wheat, and that's by the Hamill family in Penhold. And it's matured in New American Oak char number 4, very heavy char. And that's the bottle right there. Pretty bottle. Like I said, I like the style of it. I like the big, heavy base to it. And I believe they get these from France. I think they order directly from France.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bottle.
And what do we think of the nose, kind sir?
I find this I find it quite tight in terms of like there's not a lot spewing out of it. It's like it's got a unified profile to it, but I do get like that almost like a corn cobby, toasted breadiness, a little bit of sweet caramel for me.
Well, I get the caramel, and I'm wearing yellow for the corn, but I have a hard time smelling corn. People say there's a corn smell to it. I never get a corn smell. I get things around it. So for me, it's hay, a little bit kind of a hay smell to it.
Yeah.
And it's sweet, and it's a caramel sweet as opposed to the honey sweet for me as well. But the wood does come off.
It's like a peppery lumber, like a dry lumber is what I'm getting.
Yeah. And a floral spice to it. We talk about spice because it's young, but mine's a little bit floral too. And maybe I'm just confusing that with the hay, but there's something there.
I think so. I think of it as like almost like a spiced, like vanilla sweetness.
Yep.
That can be floral, as you were saying. It does have that kind of a floral tinge to it.
I'm going for that. Yeah. So great nose. It's fantastic. And we tried it 2 weeks ago, and we did the cast strength. I love cast strength, and that was my favorite because I like it. But I got to add the water and kept adding water in different parts of it. So it's fun. No water in this one, and I'm going for the palate. And I love the mouthfeel. Great mouthfeel. And it's drying as well, which I don't get in bourbons very often. But this is young. And it's a lot of wood influence on this. And it goes well, though. It meshes well.
Well, I find that you get a punch of the sweetness at first, but it dries off really quickly into that, like even a black pepper, grassy spiciness. There's a lot of warmth to it, I find. But to me, it's all about those cereal notes, and it has that sizzling spice to it.
No, I don't find spice off-putting. Some people kind of do a little bit. Not for me. There's a lot of barley in this as well, so there's some heft to it. And, I like rye. So the spice is something that's really enticing to me. I like this.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. And the finish, you said cereal notes, so I'm just going to go with cereal notes, but I'm still getting on the finish kind of, when I think hay, I think dry. So it's a drying feeling as well, but you definitely get the wood on the finish.
Get a lot of wood on the finish, that fresh char. I'm also, I find that this whiskey has almost like if you let the finish ride for a long time, because it is a long finish, you start getting this like parboiled corn. If you ever have corn that's a little bit undercooked, you get that kind of that mouth flavor. But it's long. It's like it's almost like a Zack Snyder director's cut of a whiskey. That's how long the finish is. It's yeah.
No, and I'm going to agree with that. Welcome to the best distillery in Calgary to visit. I agree. And Kent was there with us on that Saturday, so we had a lot of fun. Very engaging owners as well. They'll give you the shirt off their back. And I arrived there a long time ago, 6 months, 5 months, on a Sunday afternoon, right as they're closing. And I was brought in, and he really, without introducing myself too much, he told me about everything. And in all the stories and growing up there. And I don't know. I think when you go somewhere and you get to know the people, you just end up having an affinity for them, their story. And I think for the liquid itself, I think I was going to like it.
I haven't been there yet. I have spoken to Jacques and Daniel a bit, but I can attest that it's not that this stuff is good stuff. It's not that romantic. Walk into a distillery and you get sucked in by the whole entire experience. This is good on its own without having that experience yet.
Yes, and they're doing it right. I really do. They take their time to put things out. This came out young, and they tell you, and they're the first to say that no, this is not a whiskey. Don't call it a whiskey yet. This is a work in progress. We want to put this out there, and it's good enough to be bottled. And I'm happy to pay the $50 that I did for this, and I will again. And when it comes out next year and the year after and the year after, I really want to have these all side by side to see what they're like.
Exactly.
So it should be a lot of fun. So watch out for these guys. They're going to be fairly strong in the future. They're not someone going away. They're well established. They're making some great stuff. Any last words from you, kind sir?
No, just the bourbon is spelt like the way it is intentionally. They've taken a little bit of the Tabor and put it into bourbon, and that way they can they can call it this without anyone losing their shirt over it.
And see, the BER looks like the BER in bourbon, right? So they even changed the lettering a little bit just to make sure those three letters were prominent in both of them.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I think it's great. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Blair. Very enjoyable dram we shared. And I will see you all next week. And next week, you said that we're doing which one, Blair? You want to do?
We're going to do the noteworthy Navy Strength Gin.
Perfect. All right. Awesome. And that's where I'm there this Saturday. I'm at Douglas. So Canadian Whisky Journey, Saturday night. See you all. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you, Cancer. We'll see you again soon.